Origin Unexplained.
October is a perfect time to talk about things that don't just go bump in the night, but the things that hit you where you live, not in your house, in your body. Because sometimes what we call paranormal isn't floating down the hallway. Sometimes it goes straight for your center. I want to talk about what happens when something targets your solar plexus, your gut, your power center, your will, and what it feels like when something invisible decides that's where it wants to land. I'm going to talk about different things tonight, but I have my own stories to tell as well. The first takes us back to 2001, when I was ghost hunting at Beardsley Castle. I had just gotten out of the car and was walking up the driveway with the two ghost hunters on each side of me. I said, "I'm back." And the moment I spoke those words, I felt something swoosh into my solar plexus. It felt like it went in the front and came out the back, and it felt like it was the size of a softball. It lifted me onto my toes, and I began to tip backwards like I was going to pass out. Both ghost hunters reached out, caught me before I could even fall, thank God. That energy hit me with precision, dead center, and it didn't feel residual or random. It felt like a direct hit. Also, there was a night I was at the First Presbyterian Church House in Utica. I was going up the servant stairs during a ghost hunt, and when I opened the door at the top step to go out onto the landing where everyone else was, something flew straight into my solar plexus. It knocked the air right out of me. I nearly fell backward and down the stairs, but I managed to throw my weight forward just to keep me from tumbling, of course. It was sharp, fast, and exact. That same center point again. Yeah. A couple of years ago, there was this dream when I was asleep, obviously, totally relaxed, and in the dream, everything felt like calm. But something approached me, not threatening, not aggressive, and it asked if it could come into me. And for whatever reason, when you're sleeping, I don't know. But in the dream, I said yes. I said sure, because nothing fell off until it did. The moment I felt it trying to attach, I realized what was happening, and I said, "No, you cannot." And I pushed it back out. I didn't push it with my hands. I pushed it from my solar plexus, from my gut, from my own will, actually. That experience has stayed with me because I know damn well I would never have said yes had I been awake. I mean, I just wouldn't have. But they use that sleep state, that dreamy calm, to slip past your defenses and actually manipulate you into letting them in. People don't always realize how much of our processing doesn't happen in the brain. The real first brain is in your solar plexus. That whole gut area is home to the enteric nervous system, and what science calls your second brain, actually. I don't know if I agree with that, but I'll tell more about that in a bit. It's not just a nickname. It's a massive network of neurons that fire independently of your actual brain. It feels, senses, it reacts before your conscious mind can even catch up, guys. I mean, it just does. That's why people say, "I had a gut feeling," because you really did. Because that part of you knew before your brain did. When something spiritual hits, it's that system. I mean, it's not just emotional, it's electrical. If we talk about the ethereal body, our first brain and processing is done through that area first. Think about it. How does a ghost with no brain think? There's your answer, right? So that leads me into something I've thought about for years. This isn't scientific fact. This is just my own theory, but pay attention. I believe spontaneous human combustion has everything to do with the body's electrical current and the methane gas that we naturally carry in our gut. When you really look at documented cases and stuff, it always seems to begin in the torso, not the arms, not the legs, not the head. It starts in the stomach, right where your electrical system is the strongest, right? And you have your gases and stuff that build up. So add fat on the outside of the body, and it's basically natural fuel. And it doesn't seem so far-fetched that a strong enough internal current could ignite that mixture from the inside out. Now, I'm not saying that's exactly how it works, but I've seen enough and I felt enough to believe that it's not just some sort of freak accident. When my daughter Dakota was a baby, I noticed something strange. When we were holding her, and especially when she was upset, her stomach area would radiate heat, and I mean heat. You'd hold her, and within minutes, you'd be sweating. This wasn't just from the room or the blanket, because there was times she wasn't even wearing that, but from her body. Her maternal grandmother and I both experienced it as well. We'd be holding her and look at each other like, is she going to spontaneously combust? It became a running joke, but the truth is, that heat came from her solar plexus. The energy in that area was so intense and very real. So, if you take a look at the real spontaneous human combustion cases, you'll notice something consistent and chilling. It's always the center of the body that burns. It's the torso, the core, the solar plexus, and the rest. Sometimes it's barely touched. In some cases, the legs are still intact, a foot still in a slipper, the room barely damaged, the chair might be scorched, the walls slightly stained, but nothing around the body burns the way the body itself does. And the fire doesn't spread. It concentrates and it targets right in that area. So Mary Reeser's case is probably the most famous one, and that was in 1951, and she was found in her apartment in Florida, almost completely reduced to ash, except part of her spine, her skull, and one foot in a slipper that remained. The rest of her actually burned so thoroughly that investigators estimated temperatures of nearly 3,000 degrees in Fahrenheit. Ouch. And yet, the room was nearly untouched. A plastic cup nearby had softened. That's it. No trace of a house fire, no open flame, no accelerant, nothing. And then there was Dr. John Bentley in 1966, and his body was found in his bathroom reduced to ash, except for his lower leg. There was a hole in the floor where the fire had burned downward, but the rest of the house was fine. No walls cut, no furniture damaged. Whatever happened to him, it hit right in the gut and never left that zone. Just didn't. And then, of course, you have Jeannie Saffin in 1982. She was sitting at the table with her father when he saw a sudden burst of light come from her body. No smoke, no source, just a flash, and then flames coming from her stomach and mouth. Imagine that. Later, she ended up dying from the burns and stuff. There were no lighters, no gas, no external cause. It just started. So if you ask me why I believe the solar plexus matters, why I think it's worth paying attention to, this is why. I mean, I've felt it, I've lived it, and I've seen just enough to know that not every fire comes from a match. Some come from something a little harder to see and a whole lot harder to explain. So the next time you feel something stir deep in your gut, something sharp, something burning, something that doesn't feel like it's yours, don't be so quick to explain it away. It might not be nerves. It sure as heck might not be random. This October, remember, not every haunting creeps through your hallway. Some of them crawl straight into your core. They don't knock. They don't whisper. They go right for your center, and sometimes they come to stay. Keep your energy sealed. Guard your solar plexus like it's a locked door. And whatever you do, never say yes in your sleep.
UnXplained.